Hi. I've been keeping a bit of a secret from you. I've kind of alluded to it over the last year, but there's been something I've been working on in the background for quite a while now that has quite significantly impacted the trajectory with which I'm kind of moving in, shall we say. Anyway, before we continue, this title is not clickbait. I'm not here to pull the wool over your eyes. There's also not some great big sell at the end of it. I just wanted to share a bit of a story that explains why we are all here today. Now, if you don't know me, I am Jenny, and I usually make true crime videos about usually New Zealand cases, but I haven't shared anything in quite a while, and there is a reason for that. So if you're wondering why I called you here today for this meeting, first of all, thank you for clicking on this video. If you're new here, if you came just for the title, then stick around because I'll tell you a little bit about what's happening very soon. Now, bit of background. So about a year ago now, I suppose, I started looking into a particular New Zealand true crime case that at the beginning I was not interested in covering at all. But it kept coming up. It was requested so many times over and over again, both on TikTok and on YouTube. But I had very strong views about it. I felt that I knew who had done it, and I didn't find it particularly interesting or worth revisiting, I guess. But eventually, after getting honestly like daily requests to cover it, I thought, oh God, I will just do a short TikTok video or a YouTube short just to appease the masses, I guess, but that'll be it. I won't take it any further, and I won't make a YouTube video about it. So I started looking into it, and I knew this story fairly well, as most New Zealanders would. And I thought I knew this case inside out, basically. I thought I knew everything there was to know about it. But as I started researching, and even when I make a TikTok video, I spend a lot of time learning about the particular case or the crime and the people involved. And now I started researching this one, and the more I got into it, the more I realized how much I didn't know and how many red flags there were around this particular crime. So I ended up going down a major ADHD rabbit hole, and I spent honestly days reading everything there was to read about it. And I thought, oh my God, this is actually a lot more complicated, and it's possible that the person who has been imprisoned for this didn't do it. There is that possibility. And I just can't let this go. So I decided I wanted to do at least a multi-part series on this case, and that a single video or a single TikTok video would just not be enough. And I wanted to really actually see if I could talk to some of the key players involved. So I ended up connecting with a particular New Zealand journalist who has covered this case extensively over the past 20 odd years, right? And we ended up, I guess, getting to know each other quite well. And I spoke to him at length about this case, and he was really open with me about everything that he had learned. He was also very careful not to kind of inform my opinion one way or another. He made it very clear that I had to speak to other people involved if I was going to do a story on it, just to get a more balanced view, because trust me, it's a very contentious case. There is a clear divide between those that think this person did it and those that think they did not. So I thought, you know what, maybe this should be a podcast series. And wouldn't that be amazing if I kind of moved into the next phase of my true crime career, if you will, and because to also, little side note, tangent, and also, oh my God, can you tell I'm ADHD? Anyway, I don't have a script for this story that I'm telling you right now, so I usually, when I do my true crime videos, sit down in front of you, have a script, have talking points, but I wasn't even sure if I was going to make this video, so I'm just kind of winging it, so please just bear with me, I promise it'll be worth it. So anyway, I thought it would be really cool because currently there is no podcast on this particular case, which just kind of blows my mind because it is right up there as being one of the most famous or infamous cases in New Zealand history. So that really kind of shocked me. And there's also been a few key moments related to this case happen recently, like recent developments. It's in the news a little bit at the moment. So it seemed like the perfect time if I was going to go into something a bit more in depth. So I started collecting evidence, I guess, collating information on what I knew so far with a view to making a podcast. But I didn't just want to do it how I normally do my videos, where I'm just relaying the facts back to you. I wanted this to be like a proper production where I interview as many of the key relevant players as possible and have it be a truly balanced view on the case. So I ended up getting in touch with, what would you call it? The support camp of the accused, right? And over the past few months, I have been liaising with them or interacting with them really regularly about the case. And the person, the accused themselves at the center of it, has been really supportive of me making a podcast. Now that's kind of problem number one. So remember that because we'll circle back to that in a minute. This person has had one chief supporter sort of stand by them since day dot. And just to be clear, we're not talking about David Bain, just to get that out of the way. This person has had a chief supporter stand by them right from day one, who has been an integral part of their defense campaign and has supported them to achieve several milestones in the justice system since the crimes first took place. I have spent a lot of time talking with this person and even traveled out to their house to spend a full day interviewing them about the case. And I came away, this person also has access to absolutely everything there is to know about this case. I mean, everything. I'm talking hundreds of thousands of pages of court documents, anything related to this case since the day it started. This person has it or has access to it. So I came away from that initial meeting really kind of buzzing, and I felt so driven to pursue this story and shed light on these new things I'd learned that nobody else knows. And I'm like, why aren't people talking about this? Oh my God, nobody knows this. Like, this could change everything. So I came away from that discussion with an armload of documents, including the pathology reports, the crime scene exhibits, the notes from the detectives who were first on scene. And this is, I'm telling you, like 20 something years old. It has every single crime scene exhibit documented with a photo, with everything. The initial fingernail scrapings, everything. Like, holy my God, it's kind of the case, the crimes as it happened, the story of that is in this box. Now, that was sort of the second issue. So I got home and I started going through this box excitedly because this is first-hand information. You cannot argue with the facts as stated in these police reports, in these pathology reports. This is unbiased material. This is the material as it was gathered on the day of the crimes. It's not someone's opinion. It's not the accused camp and their take on things. It's not the other side of the camp who believe this person did it. This is just the facts, purely the facts as it happened. And it's a gold mine for somebody who is pursuing an investigation with a view to building a case. So I came home and I was so invigorated, and this felt more possible than ever. I was a little overwhelmed though, because God, there's so much information. And I started going through everything page by page. And then I got to something that did really shock me, which was the crime scene photos. And they were in black and grey, which thank God, but these crime scene photos have never been released to the public before. And listen, I'm just going to be honest, because if you're here, then you probably watch true crime, or you probably engage with true crime in some capacity, right? Look, we've all had a bit of a morbid curiosity to seek out some photos of some description, or even Netflix is pretty cavalier these days of showing, pretty graphic crime scene photos. But all of that could not prepare me for the honest to God horrors of those photos. Even though they were black and grey and you couldn't make out too many graphic details, the fact was I was now pretty close to this investigation. I knew all the people involved. I knew the victims, not personally, but I felt like I knew them from everything I'd learned. And it was just confronting in a way that I can't quite describe. So I closed that box and I did not pick it up again for about 3 months. I just couldn't bring myself to do it. And in fact, I could hardly bring myself to even think about the story for a long time. But I still, in the back of my mind, I still wanted to pursue this podcast. And so I'd written up a bit of a pitch and I started talking to some different podcast networks. And actually, I had quite a bit of interest from some really quite big podcast networks here in New Zealand. And one of them, I started the process of actually going through the development phase, and we were going to apply for funding from New Zealand On Air, which here in New Zealand, basically if in the arts and creativity field, you can apply for funding and they will grant you a certain amount. However, it is notoriously difficult to get anything related to true crime funded here in New Zealand, despite the fact that people have an appetite for it. That is just the confronting sad reality, is that people are interested in true crime and they enjoy consuming it. But despite that, it's still damn near impossible to get anything funded. So I went down the path of pursuing funding and developing the story with this particular network. And ultimately, it fell through because of the funding issue. And when that happened, I was surprised that I wasn't as devastated as I thought I was going to be. So when this all started initially happening, I was kind of like, holy shit, this is a dream come true. This is sort of everything I've wanted. And I wanted it to be, like a American Scandal level production, really groundbreaking, amazing, like Black Hands. And I knew I couldn't do that by myself. I simply do not have the technical capabilities. But when it fell through, I thought, you know what? I am so far down the track with this case. I will just simply do it myself. And my boyfriend, he actually has a sound engineering degree from a million moons ago. Normally, he's the one who helps me get everything set up. And normally, I'm recording on this extremely bougie mic that you might see creeping in the background. Not today, because I can't be bothered. So I knew that actually between us and our contacts, we would be able to pull it off ourselves. So I proceeded to start planning this podcast on my own. I got as far as sketching out all the podcast episodes and starting to schedule interviews. And then I ran into a wall that I have not been able to break through. And you know what? That wall is one of my own making. But let's just circle back to problem number one. You remember how I said earlier on that the accused at the center of all of this was quite encouraging and enthusiastic about me making this podcast? Well, the reason that that is a problem is because, to me, if I was to make this podcast, I wasn't on some crusade to free this person from jail, because I do not believe that that is my job. Ultimately, I didn't want it to be a podcast series pitching for the release of this person from prison. I wanted it to be an unbiased presentation of the case as it stands, with fair and considered input from both sides. So the fact that at this stage, the only side who was enthusiastic about my creating this podcast series was the accused and the accused's, support camp, that already raises a lot of concerns about neutrality. And it just didn't sit right with me that at that stage, the only people I'd be interviewing were that side. I had a contact on the other side who believed that this person was guilty, who had connections with this person's family. And I had spoken to them last year about the case. And at that stage, they'd been very supportive, encouraging, willing to participate. But now I was getting ghosted. So it was not looking likely that I'd be able to interview people who shared the opposing point of view. And that was a serious blow to my plans and also my vision for what I wanted to achieve. And then I was making a broader list of people I wanted to interview, people who weren't directly connected to either of these groups, but who were still really important players. And one of those people was a relative of one of the victims, who was also the one to discover the murders. So this person was first on scene that day, and they were on my list of people to contact. And I found them online, and I was thinking about how I was going to pitch this to them. And I just kind of had this revelation in that moment that I'm about me, this random stranger, this YouTuber, this TikToker on the internet, I'm about to contact this person about the worst thing that has ever happened to them in their life, that I am sure they just want to move on from. And here I am, some social media girl wanting to dredge it all up again. And for what? Truly. Why me? I do believe that the public has a right to know certain things about police conduct and the way that an investigation is carried out, because I do believe that law enforcement and the justice system needs to be held to account. But let's not beat around the bush here. My intentions with creating this podcast, whilst yes, is largely to hold those people in power to account, it's also because I'm a true crime YouTuber and it's good for me to branch out and do something a little bit more in depth, which is so selfish. It's so selfish. I just felt so gross about it, and I never contacted them. And then I started getting calls from the other camp, the guilty camp, or the considered guilty camp, the accused camp, wondering why I wasn't progressing on this podcast. And I just didn't really know how to tell them. And even in that moment, I thought, oh my God, what am I doing here? Like, what am I doing here? Why am I involved in this? I'm so involved in it. And why? Like, I'm not going to change anything. The reality is that anything I do want to say about holding certain people in power to account, which I do, I can't say it anyway because of litigation, because of fear of being subject to a libel lawsuit or defamation. Like there's no way I can say any of that. So why am I doing it? What's the point? So between that and the fact that I am still unable to open that box of pathology documents because of those crime scene photos, that all just sort of made me realize that I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore, you guys. I don't feel good about it. But I just want to make it clear that I am not, this is just about me, all right? Like, I am not like slamming true crime as a genre because I enjoy consuming true crime content. I do. I freaking love that stuff. There's a new series, Homicide New York has just come out on Netflix and I love it, right? I love to consume it. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with it. I do think we kid ourselves sometimes about our intentions. And I do feel that maybe we should just be honest with ourselves about what we are really doing here. Not everyone, obviously. This is me and what I've sort of come to realize. So for now, I'm not really going to do this anymore. I don't really want to do this anymore. I don't know how I can do this and feel okay about all of these different things. But what I have decided to do, and this is going to be so boring for some of you, and I know this is so random, but I am taking a bit of a break to make book and journaling content. It's just like meditation for me, I suppose. So I've got a second YouTube channel. It's called The Lonely Readers Club. Y'all can check it out if you want to. I'll be making content there. But I figured, what am I going to do with all this knowledge that I have now, right? Like all of this knowledge, all of this stuff I've learned over the years. I consider myself a pretty good expert on the New Zealand justice system now. I know all of these really famous cases so thoroughly inside and out, like every single aspect of it. And something I've always wanted to do, that I've always felt deep in my being that I ultimately would do, is write a book. So that is what I'm doing. I have started to write a fiction book based on everything I have learned. And let me freaking tell you, this book will speak the truth. It's fiction, but this book is where I will be able to channel my frustration about all of these things and make it have been worth something. Make it so it's not for nothing. And I'm hopeful that through that medium, I can actually say what I want to say and bring a bit of meaning to all of this work that I've been doing. So that's my story, okay? I am a true crime YouTuber who's quitting true crime. But this may not be the end, you know, I'm saying that now. This may not be the end. I might come back. I'll still be here anyway. Maybe I'll share some of my crime book updates with you as I go, as I'm writing it. I feel really good about it. I think it's a very interesting story that I think each and every one of you would probably enjoy if you like watching this content. But again, this is not me plugging myself. I just wanted to thank you guys so freaking much for watching my stuff. I feel so close to so many of you, and every time I get a comment or anything supportive. I just really need you to know how much it means to me that you would choose to stick around and watch my long ass rambling videos. The fact that you're here now, it means a lot. So thank you, and I hope you can understand. This is not goodbye, it's just see you later. Is that the saying? Anyway, if you want to find me, you can find me. I'll leave links in the comments below. I'll still be hanging out here, so we can chat over in the community tab. But yeah, I'm so sorry. No Ben Smart and Olivia Hope video coming up. But for what it's worth, I think Scott Watson was totally innocent. There's my thoughts on that. So yeah, thanks for watching. Love ya. Bye.